Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. We're going to be speaking about the healing work of Bruno Gröning. Bruno, interestingly, born in 1906 and passed in 1959, continues the work through something called the Circle of Friends. Now, we've done some radio shows on the subject, and people have been just amazed at the kinds of results that are showing up for them medically in their bodies and their emotions from being connected to this group, the Circle of Friends. It's a totally free group. It's a non-profit organization that is across the world, and it's been in existence, well, really since the time of Bruno's life itself. So there's an energy field inside it that is having these kinds of effects, and we have invited two people of the New York group to speak with us about some of their direct experiences with this healing field. So Joseph, Trent, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you speak at a lot of these circle meetings because of a rather extraordinary change that has happened to you through your involvement. Could you share that with our audience, what it has happened to you?
Sure. There have been so many things that have happened, but what brought me to the Circle of Friends, in about 2010, I had a very severe chronic illness, fatigue-like syndrome, that I was bedridden for 6 weeks and could barely eat. My throat was so sore, a malaise, constant fatigue. I'd lost a lot of work also. This continued for really 3 years of when I finally started to get a little better through herbal treatments and acupuncture and things, was able to get around. It still never was great for the next 3 years. I still had moments where I would be back in bed for weeks and months and losing work. And I have a dear friend of mine who's in the Circle of Friends in Germany. He came to visit, and he has come many, many years, and he always told me a little bit about the Circle of Friends, but I didn't pry too much and didn't ask. And eventually I thought, you know, I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm going to investigate this Bruno Gröning's Circle of Friends and see what it might be able to do for me. And I was waiting for him to arrive, and the week he was due to arrive, I went by my local library, and on the bulletin board I walked by and I did a double take because I saw a flyer with Bruno's picture, and I said, that looks like that Bruno Gröning guy. And I looked closer, and it was an announcement for the documentary film, which is a 5-hour film, and I thought, I have to go to that. And it was the exact time when my friend was arriving. There's no coincidences, you know, in the spiritual realm, as we know. So I went and saw that film, and I experienced intensity of my symptoms, which is part of the cleansing which we learn about through this teaching of Bruno that happens. And I thought I wasn't even going to be able to stay for the whole film. And I got ready to leave.
It's also a long film.
It is 5 hours, yeah. It's in 3 parts.
A good one.
Yes. But by the end of the second part, I went to the elevator to leave. And I pushed the down button to leave. And then I heard people standing around me talking about their healings, and even children. And I thought, I have to stay. I have to find a way to go back in and stay, no matter how sick I feel. And I went and I stayed. It was a beautiful, unbelievable film. And when I went home, I was right to bed and felt, like I said, the intensity of a cleansing or something going on, which I didn't really understand the moment, but I went
just felt worse.
Yeah. And then I went to the very next day, I went to my first community hour meeting, which we have here. And in that meeting, the community leader was talking about how Bruno says we have to give everything away that we don't want. Negative in the physical, in the mental and emotional, whatever we're holding on to that doesn't serve us. And I just sat there and with all my heart, I just said, I don't want this anymore. I don't know what this means, but I'm just giving it away. That's what I'm told to do. I gave it away, and I started to feel a tingling and a swirling in my hands and fingers and up through my arms of some type of energy pulse. And then I immediately felt a joy and a lightness that I hadn't felt in 3 years, because this was now 2013. I have to jump this was 2013 when I first had this. This was 2010, now 2013. So for 3 years, I hadn't felt like this, and I immediately felt like something was just lifted from me. And I remember standing up and talking in that very first community hour and sharing what I felt right away. And then I went home. My friend from Germany was with me. We went home, and you couldn't stop me talking. And before, I had felt like such a bad friend when he's here because I was just sitting and moping, woe is me, and I can't do the, And then he couldn't shut me up. And we actually went and got ice cream on the way home, and we were laughing, having a great time. We're sitting in my apartment, and all of a sudden I looked, and I look at me. I said, what's happened to me? He said, you've had one of those spontaneous healings. And I just felt so blessed and so grateful and so happy and joyous. This is the first thing. Now, what happened also in 2011, another healing was while this illness was going on.
That time. Oh, yes.
Yes, in 2011, I had another thing with a trigger finger. So I had that malaise, that illness, whatever was going on, right? Then I developed a year later this trigger finger where the finger falls down and you can't lift it up and it's very painful, and I'm a flutist, I'm a musician.
Right. You need that finger.
I need that.
Mad.
I had to go to the doctor, the hand doctor. They gave me a shot of cortisone, and it lasted for a week or two, and then it came back down. I went back again. He said, we can do one more. Maximum we can do is 3 shots because the cortisone, the shots will break down the cartilage. After the 3rd shot, it was still not good. He says, you have to have surgery. I said, I can't have surgery. I don't have insurance right now. I don't have all these things to cover it. I can't do this. Oh, well, so that was 2011. I lived with that for 2 years, once again in the circle of friends. After I joined in October, the following February, in the middle of a community hour, I was sitting with my hands open like this on my lap, and all of a sudden something told me to move my hands, and I just went like this. I did not have to have surgery, I had nothing. It's been that way, healed ever since. This, along with another thing with the ear and something with GERD, which I could talk about more, but there's just so many experiences that have happened through the teaching, through taking in this divine energy. And
extraordinary. This could change the whole situation.
It already has for me. Yes.
I mean the whole situation with lots of me's, like a few billion.
Yes, yes. And there have been so many people in my immediate family that not necessarily going to the community meetings or anything, but have heard about me speaking about my healings, physical, emotional, mental, everything, and have then received, for lack of a better, healing. Mm-hmm. Through, as Bruno has said, he says, when we receive healing, he says, we can then pass on. Not necessarily, we're not doing it, but we become somewhat like a channel for him to help send that energy to others. As he himself said when he was in the body and having lectures and talks, he said, those of you who have come here on the behalf of someone else can go home now. Your prayers have been answered. And people would go home and find out that their loved ones also had been healed.
Joseph, thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.
Because this is very powerful.
Yeah,
very powerful.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
All the best.
I'm so glad you're able to play the flute again.
Me too.
That was extraordinary to hear. What a story Joseph had to share with us. And now we're going to be speaking with Dominique Jeannot, who is one of the leaders of the Circle of Friends here in the community that takes place here in New York. So, bienvenue, welcome.
Merci, merci.
Good to see you. And you too have a story that brought you to Bruno.
Yes.
And share it, if you would, with our audience.
I'd like to tell you how I came to Bruno. I was searching around 2008 for a different path. I didn't have any particular illnesses or discomforts or anything, but I knew that there was something out there for me that would totally suit me. And I was listening in 2008, late 2008, 2009, to Hay House Radio and Christiane Northrup, Dr. Christiane Northrup's radio show. And she had on 2 medical doctors from the Bruno Gröning Circle of Friends. They're the medical scientific group. And they were discussing how energy...
Let me inform people, because I know and you know.
Yes.
But one of the interesting aspects of this group work is that when Bruno was in the body, there were many, many doctors all over Germany and Europe who used to come and bring their patients that they could do nothing for to the circle for his healing. And they documented the healings of their patients for whom they could do nothing more for, right? And so there is this huge part of the Bruno work, which is the documentation by doctors around the world of the healings that have taken place.
Yes.
So with that said.
Yes. And I have a feeling that this was Spirit's way of really capturing me. So I called Elizabeth McGowan, who had been the leader, the inner circle leader, and she had been quite involved in organizing things for the Circle of Friends in New York City. And it took many months, but we finally connected. And in late 2009, I think late October, early November, I was able to attend some of the events. And they were having, actually, as it happens, a series of lectures and medical presentations in 2010. And so I attended one of the medical lectures. There was a panel of a number of doctors from Europe, 6 or 7 doctors giving presentations of the healings, the documented healings that have been happening since Bruno's death. And that is what really convinced me to look even further, more deeply, because I come from a medical and scientific background, and I know that Spirit wanted me to be thoroughly convinced. That's Bruno Gröning said, you have to convince yourself. And that was my introduction, my real introduction that convinced me to look more deeply. And so several days after this panel, I attended the 5-hour documentary. I was just completely blown away because I got to see images of Bruno Gröning and photograph, and there was something familiar about him. That's what really intimately drew me, because I knew him. Something within me recognized that I had made a pact with him. This is something that I tell, this is what I tell friends who want to know more intimately what drew me, because I didn't, have an illness that I was looking for healing for. And when I saw
I see, you were his wife in a past life.
Not necessarily,
No, I'm kidding.
But I'm thinking that perhaps from the other side, I knew that I had to help with this work.
You were energetically married to the work.
The work, exactly. And since then, I had my formal introduction, I think a couple of days after that, and I asked Elizabeth and her mentor, Heike Beck at the time, how I could help. And I thought I would be helping with, public relations maybe, or the book table, selling the materials and things of that nature. And since everything is by donation, they said, oh, we won't really need that. What we really need are leaders. Leaders for certain groups, and there were several groups that needed leaders at the time, and I didn't think I was ready for it, but Bruno and God knew differently, and since then, yes, and since then I've been helping to lead, and there are just so many helps and healings that have happened, well, to me, lots of help, and friends around me have been getting healings and passing on healings, and I've been.
Is there a particular
one in particular
that you could share with us?
Yes, one particular of my friend Susan Browser, who happens to now be the treasurer for one of the groups that I lead. She and I went to a hiking week. Because they also provide, sponsor these wonderful events all over the world. And that's where we can absorb the energy in nature, because Bruno really stressed that's what he did, and that's where God is most present.
Comes from.
Yes, and that he spurs us to really reconnect to nature, and that's really how people can experience God, in that visceral way. And Susan had been having all these residual symptoms from Lyme disease that she could never really completely heal. And then she woke up one morning, I think maybe several months after the hiking week, and she realized that she didn't have the symptoms anymore. And something within her told her to stop taking the medication, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just been over a year, almost 2 years, and she's been healed from that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And there's more.
Dominique, I'm beginning to think of people I know with Lyme disease. So I
And Bruno said there is no
forward.
incurable. There is no incurable. There is no
That's a
incurable.
very important point.
You just release everything
No
that's negative.
one, no thing that is incurable. That is beautiful. Well, merci pour tout. Huh? Thank you for this. It's really beautiful to get to know you.
That's
and,
wonderful. Thank
to
you
have
for inviting
share.
me. I was very
Absolutely.
happy to be here.
So glad, so glad. So as you are learning, people from all walks of life, with all types of conditions, have been coming to the Bruno work, whether he's dead or alive. That's not the point. This is far beyond. This is an energy field that he too is a conduit of, and he makes that rather clear, doesn't he? He makes that clear. And it's not a person doing a healing. It's a field that's been created by God, by nature, that is given when we receive. When we're open to the receiving, magic happens. So it's beautiful, and any one of you can participate in this. So why don't you give a phone number or website, if you would,
The
which we'll also
website,
post.
the website is www.bruno-groening.org/English.
Oh boy. Okay. Just put in Bruno Gröning.
Yes,
Into
yes,
the
yes.
search
Just you can search engine.
Groening.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, Dominique, thanks again. It's a real
You're
pleasure to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, certainly. I personally had some experiences, and some of my patients have gained much from doing this type meditation. Some of them were inclined to go this way, others did other various forms of meditation, but some have had quite pretty remarkable results. And to me, Bruno Gröning was teaching very healthy things. We saw that because people sitting listening to his lecture would experience healing just by the experience of hearing what he said and the impact that would have on their own beliefs. And these are very, very powerful concepts. And it's important to appreciate them. And what Bruno did helps me do what I do, and I am very appreciative of that. But of course, our world would be much better, much more peaceful, much more loving if we would integrate these concepts into life and into medicine.
I'm very impressed and honored to be a member of the medical scientific group of the Bruno Gröning Circle of Friends, because I don't know of any other medical organization with physicians and other health professionals, especially with the physicians who are interested in spiritual healing and who bring our medical expertise together to verify the healings so that the public can know that healings really do exist. In the Circle of Friends, people are encouraged to continue not only in their own faith, but with whatever medical care they've been receiving, and to continue to go to their doctors. There isn't any contradiction between spiritual healing and treatments with their own physicians. People are encouraged to follow their own hearts. We never give medical advice one way or the other. The Circle of Friends includes people of every faith and every spiritual background, and it's simply included in the person's life, and that includes the person's medical orientation. And I'd like to start in my experience when I first went to the medical science lecture, and I felt very strong energy. I felt a lot of shivering and cold. I felt vibrations throughout my whole body, tingling and heaviness in my hands and feet.
I was very impressed by the information that was shared. Case reports about patients. There was a woman who had severe hearing problems, and they showed charts and tests that demonstrated this, her depressed hearing, and then how she became part of the Circle of Friends, and then her hearing became normal. And there were a number of cases like that. And so I thought those were very powerful. I was also impressed by the demeanor of the doctor. She was clearly a serious practitioner, but also kind, and the other people there were kind and open, so I had a very nice impression. I originally went to the lecture as a doctor interested in what this had to offer, and I was inspired and convinced enough to begin doing Einstellen on my own, sitting twice a day for 10 minutes and taking in the healing stream. I didn't really have expectation, but I've noticed as time has gone by that I've had much more energy for many years because I work and I have young children, and my biggest complaint to myself is I never have downtime. I never have time to sort of regenerate and be refreshed, and I feel that way now. I feel refreshed and energetic, but I still haven't had that downtime. I also feel a lot more joyful. I sort of felt that though I loved many aspects of my life, that because I was always on, that it almost felt like drudgery or here we go. But now I just feel much more joyful and playful. One other thing is I'm aware that I'm feeling much more trustful when things come up that feel challenging or issues in life. I'm able to say, oh, it's going to be okay. And I actually feel that way.
My experiences have been extraordinary. When I have taught Einstellen, I've had medical healings already. I haven't. Bruno Gröning has, and God has. Things like hip pain in an 83-year-old going away immediately after 20 years. My sister-in-law had a tumor in her throat, a small tumor that the dentist was watching. She gave it to Bruno. It disappeared. Breast cysts going away. Because if this kind of power is available to heal illnesses that doctors aren't doing very well with, then the Hippocratic oath that I took that said, first do no harm, the other side of that is do everything good you possibly can do. And this is that, to teach people about Bruno Gröning and the power that's available through this method. The medical scientific group in the Circle of Friends was actually what drew me to the work in the first place. I have been involved with holistic medicine for nearly 30 years, and I've known all kinds of different spiritual healing techniques and massage and acupuncture, and many of these things have been studied to see if they are effective. What I loved about the Circle of Friends and the medical scientific group was the documentation of the cases. The case must be something that could not have been cured in any other way. So there's no mixing up of the different modalities. It's very pure. And it is the Einstellen that has caused the cure. And this is very well documented. I've also met many of the patients, including a gentleman from Canada who had a 4-vessel blockage in his heart, in his coronary arteries. And after listening to a CD of Bruno Gröning, he had a healing later that night, and then went on to have an angiogram showing that all the vessels were clear. So the scientific documentation is very, very, very rigorous. So it allows the intellect to have a bridge to cross to the heart. The Heilstrom energy is something I have felt from the very first time, although over the months and years it has grown. I always feel it as, at the very least, as a tingling in my hands and often in my feet and sometimes in my face. And also there's an extreme sense of peace, so that sometimes I don't want to stop. The thing that is most special to me about the Bruno Gröning Circle of Friends is, first of all, that it's donation only, that it does not require any set of beliefs, that there's nothing to join, that there's no creed that one must believe in. There's no set of commandments. You come, you feel the energy. You ask Bruno to take your burdens. It's also extraordinarily simple. Nothing is nearly as effective for everybody as Einstellen and absorbing the Heilstrom. It's so simple and it speaks to every human being's heart, no matter where they are on the planet.
Extraordinary. This is bringing miracles to life. And you have to ask yourself, what's a miracle? Maybe it's just the way we think about what nature really is. So I'm very glad that you joined us today and had a chance to experience yourself directly the work of Bruno Gröning and see for yourself what it would be like to actually be a recipient of this kind of energy field by coming to the community meetings in the New York area or wherever you may be. Meetings are literally all over the world. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and I look forward to seeing you all